fight and we're looking good. You'll be in for a fight and we fight pretty good. Getting goals is our job and we get goals good. Looking good, we are Carlisle United.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Brunton Bugle, the one place to get a kind of fix in the podcast world. I'm Lee Rooney.
And I'm Mike Booth.
United's unbeaten run comes to an end in controversial circumstances as the ref takes centre stage in a 3-2 defeat. We look back on that loss to Leyton Orient while previewing the midweek trip to Cheshire to take on big spenders Stockport County.
With a pass so true to Boulder Stone and Clark's in view. There's a cross and a run.
I left too much space there, didn't I? For once, I normally I'm keep it quite tight to the thing, but there you go. I normally say, how are you doing it today, Mike? Obviously, I saw you yesterday. I'm going to ask you, how's your voice today?
It's a little bit better. I mean, to be honest, I thought that, obviously it's Sunday now that we're recording, I thought I might have calmed down a little bit, but I haven't. I'm still absolutely furious.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure everyone can hear my voice is a little bit ropey today. I got a little bit angry during that game, I think it's fair to say. As I'm sure did most of the crowd for that match, didn't they? It was quite a tasty one, shall we say. But we'll talk about that in a minute. But first up, let's do our usual messages from sponsors and about subscribing and stuff like that.
We're very proud to say that once again this season the podcast has been sponsored by the Carlisle United Sports Club London branch. The London branch is open to all Carlisle United fans. They've got members from Cornwall to Dundee and Houston to Singapore and of course every part of London and the South East. They regularly meet up on away trips as well as arranging many social events, sports games and fundraising for the club. They'll be providing us with information for the away games as part of the preview section this season too. You can find out more about the London branch at their website, carlisle.londonbranch.org. Just a reminder also, if you don't already, please do subscribe to the podcast. You can do that on any good podcast app, wherever you get your podcasts, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Pocket Casts, any good podcast app. If you just search the Brunton Bugle, click subscribe, and then every time a new episode comes out, you will get it straight into your inbox. And if you don't already, please do follow us on social media. We're on Twitter, at Brunton Bugle. Same address on Instagram, at Brunton Bugle. If you search for the Brunton Bugle on Facebook and click like, you can follow us there. And we're also on the Be Just Unfair Not Facebook group, which is a fantastic community. Over 3,000 people in there. Would recommend joining it, definitely. We're on the Cumbrians.net message board. And you can find us on email, bruntonbugle@gmail.com. Okay, Mike, that's all the usual messages out of the way. Let's get into, well, I'm going to say get into news. There's no news because it's so short a distance in terms of time between the two episodes that we haven't actually got any news to cover. So what we'll do is do a very quick loan watch roundup because there's not a huge amount to cover here. First up, Max Kilsby hasn't played yet. He's going to be playing on Monday night. So if you listen to this on Monday night, you can watch Allen Athletic v Pollock in the second round of the Scottish Cup. I think it's on the BBC website. It might well be on BBC Scotland or something like that. If you want to see Max potentially in action, he's been on the bench for a few games recently, so he might not start. But there'll be plenty of ex-Blues on show, won't there? I think Josh Galloway's there, Steve Swinglehurst, Rowan Steele, a few others like that. So yeah, that might be one worth watching. Lewis Bell, though, he did play in the Scottish Cup second round. They had a weekend off last week at Gretna, but this weekend they were in action in the Scottish Cup second round, and he got his third goal in 10 games for the Anvils. Unfortunately, it was in a 4-1 defeat to Drumchapel United. So they've gone out in the second round of the Scottish Cup, have Gretna. But looking at the barefaced stats, Mike, he's doing all right at Gretna, isn't he? It's one of those ones where maybe you look at, because I think it's till January is his loan, isn't it? It's not a season-long one. You maybe get him back and say, right, let's get you out somewhere a little bit higher and test yourself there, possibly.
Yeah, hopefully. Maybe somewhere like Annan, perhaps. I don't know.
Yeah, Annan might be a decent move, actually, possibly. Hopefully, maybe we can say to Murphy, look, he's been doing well there. He's built up his strength, he's played some first-team football. Let's get into yourselves and give you a hand. But mind you, they might not need a winger. You never know. That's the thing. Sam Fishburn, he made another start for the Highwaymen, Morpeth Town, in a 1-1 draw with Atherton Collieries. We're not going to do the X-Files section today because we'll do it on the preview for the Tranmere away game. Basically, we'll pack it all into there, any midweek stuff as well. You see, so there'll be plenty covered there. But Liam Noble did actually score the goal. It was a free kick for Morpeth in this game. So yeah, they continue to do quite well this season. And again, good game time for the Fish, isn't it? We discussed this on the way back in the car, and we did actually mention it on the Twitter space we did. But our feeling is that you might well start looking soon and think, well, we might have to get the Fish back because we're struggling with strikers, aren't we?
Yeah, although Simo he said something last season about he doesn't want to play young lads just because there's an injury crisis. He wants to play young lads who have earned the right to play, regardless of an injury crisis.
Is there an argument he's doing that with Morpeth? He's played 10 games now. 9 games now, 3 goals. He's doing all right there.
Perhaps, but I think he might rate Bilardo a little bit higher than he rates Fishburne. I don't know.
Bilardo's a different sort of player. He's not quite.
Yeah.
Fishburne's more like a traditional target man almost, isn't he? He's a striker, whereas Bilardo, I think, can play out wide a little bit as well, so that might be one reason why he's got him in there, possibly. There you go. Gabe Breeze didn't appear for Widnes again. We're taking a presumption that loan's been ended early, basically, because they've signed to keep it, and he's not even been on the bench from that time. There's no point in being down there just to be a sub, is there, at the end of the day? Lewis Boyd, though, the YTS keeper, he made his 6th appearance for Carlisle City, but they went down to a 4-2 home defeat to Tow Town. So that wrapped up the loan watch this week. There's not a huge amount to cover there, but again, nice to see Lewis Bell getting another goal, and hopefully that'll build his confidence up at the very least as well. Okay, Mike, well, we've 5 minutes in, we've put it off enough now. Let's talk about Carl United 2, Leyton Orient 3. It's the match review section. We were fuming after this, weren't we? I think it's fair to say.
I mean, generally, I don't like to blame referees for defeats. And to be fair to Simo didn't blame the referee for the defeat. He said, we made some mistakes for the goals we conceded. But the officiating, I mean, to be the worst referee that people have seen at Brunton Park this season takes some doing. Yeah. And him and the linesman, certainly on the Paddock side, were just terrible.
First 2 goals cost us in this game, basically, didn't they? That's essentially what's happened, basically. We've got 2 goals early on where we just totally switched off, haven't we? That's the problem for the pair of them. It's so frustrating because we generally, we don't maybe start the games quickly in terms of attacking, but we're very solid early on in games generally, I found. So to do this early on was such a shock, and that's what's cost us. But then what the ref has done is made it really difficult for us to get back in the game. That's the problem with the way and we'll get on to it in a minute, but the only decision he really got right for me, the big decision, was the red card. He was right to send Edmondson off. I don't think there's any arguments there. There's an argument that maybe Pratley should have at least got a booking for his part in it, because he was involved in it. He had Edmondson by... Whether he had them by the neck, I don't know. The problem is the club haven't put the red card onto the pitchside blues coverage, which is a bit annoying, really, because I would have... I suppose they have their reasons, maybe, but I would have liked to...
I don't think they want his ban to be more than 3 games.
maybe, but it's one of those ones... It probably would have showed us, at the very least, that Pratley probably should have got a booking, maybe, possibly even sent off himself, because he definitely... If you watch the video, he definitely has Edmondson. And what Edmondson does is he shrugs him off. The problem is he puts his hand too high. Yeah. And you can't do that. As soon as you do that, you are running the risk of getting yourself sent off. I mean, it's nothing compared. I don't know if you've seen this video. I think I sent it to you, Mike. The incident at Rill against Bangor this weekend.
Yeah.
I mean, oh wow! If none of you have seen this, go and search it out. It was Rill against Bangor in the Welsh League, and I think it ended up with 7 red cards in total, 5 for Rill, 2 for Bangor. It's a local derby, that game, basically, but. Yeah, there was when I say a punch-up, I mean, you see these fisticuffs at the end of games. One lad throws about 2 or 3 punches, doesn't he? Genuine
I think the referee got punched at one point as well.
I think he did. I felt sorry for that ref because he clearly couldn't, we talk about, losing control of the game, but the way they were behaving, you can't control that. That's the problem. But there you go. So, a frustrating afternoon just because we played so well. That's the thing. It was a weird feeling leaving the ground, wasn't it? You said this. There was a feeling of I'm not disappointed that we lost. I'm really proud of how we played, and actually felt very encouraged leaving the ground.
Yeah, I mean, often after a defeat, you feel deflated, and I still felt disappointed. But in that disappointment, there's almost like an anger, and I think with that, if the players are feeling that way, we can channel that into Stockport on Tuesday and get a good result.
Yeah, that's the hope, isn't it? I mean, let's talk about the game itself now, and then we'll talk about some talking points. We've only got 1 60-second review this week, and that's from Greg Bullman. I haven't listened to it yet, but Greg was fuming at full time. So he recorded one at full time, sent it to me. Wasn't happy with what he said, so said I'll record one tomorrow when I'm maybe calm down a little bit. And he sent us another one out, which I haven't listened to, so that'll be interesting to hear first time. But we might have to get the bleep machine out for it, I think. But let's talk about the game then. 2 changes from the win over Doncaster. Obviously, one of them enforced in Stretton, obviously, getting his injury. So Christian Dennis comes back in. It's a fairly straightforward swap. And then Jack Ellis a little bit unlucky to be dropped for Finback, but I mean, the game Finback had justified Simo's decision there, didn't it?
Yeah, and I think, to be honest, Back, while he always has been playing well, I think he saw some of Ellis's performances and thought, I need to put a good game in here because this lad is putting in. If I have a sloppy game, I could be out the team. Finback was brilliant. Yeah.
Well, but the thing is with Back, he'll now know if he just gets a suspension or he gets an injury or something, he'll know, right, getting back in the team might be tough next time because Ellis has shown he can do a really good job there. So, fair play to Jack. He was on the bench, which I think was a nice touch from Sim, actually. Rather than dropping him out the matchday squad, it was actually Duncan Idahan that missed out. He dropped out the matchday squad and Ellis was one of the defenders alongside Feeney. So I thought that was nice. I thought that was really smart man management from Simo there. Let's talk about the goals then. I haven't really written down much about the chances because there was chances, but there wasn't. I don't think either keeper had a huge amount of saves to make outside of the goals, did they? When you think about it, there wasn't really too many clear-cut chances. Let's talk about the goals then. First up, Theo Archibald. I was just 2 minutes in. This is such a soft goal to concede, isn't it?
Yeah, you and me are both big fans of John Mellish, but I think he has to do a little bit better here, really.
I think he could maybe come out a bit more, but there's a risk if he skips past him, he trips him or gives away a free kick early on. You don't really want to do that, do you? I think it's a combination. Mellish probably should get a bit tighter and a bit closer, but also I think the midfield, he got away from them far too easily as well. Moxon and Guy were a little bit found wanting on that occasion, I think.
Yeah, I think so. And I think it was a tough one for Holy as well, because when the ball's coming through a little crowd of bodies like that, you don't know if it's going to take a deflection or what's going to happen.
It was very well hit. We were right behind it when we saw it going all the way, and there's maybe an argument that Thomas should have done a little bit better on that, maybe could have got to it, but it was hit really well. It was bouncing all the way as well. It was a really difficult one. I mean, he was a quality player. For the first half, he was excellent for Archibald for them. Yeah. I should say, second half, he was anonymous. He barely had a kick second half, and that's a bit of a credit to the way we played. But yeah, so frustrating to concede that goal early on. With his shot from 20 yards. But then we responded well. We didn't get too downhearted. We went back at them. Got ourselves a corner. Now there's some debate about whether it was a corner. I still think it was. I watched the video. I think he heads it onto the back of the guy in front of him, Finback. I don't know what your thoughts.
50-50 really, wasn't it?
It's one of those ones the ref could have given it either way. I don't think either team could grumble too much about it. But yeah, lovely ball in from Callum Guy. And when you watch it back, Edmondson does really well to find himself in space, doesn't he? Shrugs off his marker easily, heads the ball into the ground and beyond the despairing dive of Lawrence Vigouroux in the Orient goal. And at that point, you're thinking, yes, that's what you want. Quick response, get them on the back foot for Orient. And then Theo Archibald's second goal. I mean, we talk about a soft goal to concede. In a sense, it's a brilliant goal, but in a sense, it is so soft and it's so frustrating because Holy rolls the ball out to Mellish. There's an argument: does he need to roll it out to Mellish there? Can he not slow it down? I mean, we could see how quickly Archibald has started the game at that point. I think he'd had another shot as well before that. And you think to yourself, don't give it to a player who's near Theo Archibald. Just don't. Give it to Whelan if you have to. Go down that way. Gave it to Mellish. He takes one touch and he slips. And you know what? That can happen to anyone. That's not something like, you can get too angry at them. Players slip. It happens. It just happens that he slipped right in front of a player who's banging form. And the finish over Holy is... I mean, I heard some people say, Holy, big lad, how is he getting lobbed from there? It's a brilliant finish. He could not have placed it any better. And Holy's... And not be funny, even when Holy rolls out, doesn't mean you have to go get right back on your line.
Yeah.
That'd be poor goalkeeping if he did, because he's got to be ready to react to that. He can't anticipate that.
Exactly. I mean, if Mellish didn't slip and Mellish had decided that he wanted to pass it back to Holy because he was under pressure and Holy's on his goal line, one of their strikers could have nipped in front of him and scored anyway. So
just you just got to put your hands up there and say, what a brilliant finish. And I'm sure Thomas isn't annoyed being lobbed, especially because he is such a big lad. But I'm sure he'll also look back at it and go, you know what? He put it pretty much in the top corner with that chip.
Yeah.
Absolutely perfect finish. So fair play to the lad. And then we obviously... Let's talk about... Should we talk about the red card before we talk about the second half goals?
Yeah.
Because what leads up to it is there should have been a handball, basically. A corner's cleared back out to Callum Guy. He comes to him and he plays a low ball in. And now, if the lad doesn't touch it with his hand, I think that ball's coming through to John Millis potentially to score. So his hand's out by his side. It's not like right by his side. It's sticking out. It hits his hand. It's a penalty, surely. And the ref doesn't give it. And I'm genuinely... And from that, their keeper claims the ball, sends it forward, and as the players are coming out, Pratley grabs... Undoubtedly, I think at first, Edmondson bumps into him. Pratley grabs him by the sort of scruff of his neck, almost.
I mean, there was a lot of grabbing going on.
It was...
As it was anyway.
I think if Edmondson's arm isn't as high as it is, if he basically shrugs him off at chest height, I think at that point the ref maybe just gives the pair of them a booking and says just get on with it. But because it's so high, I don't think he has any choice, and we can't grumble about it. It's a red card at the end of the day. It's silly from Edmondson, and it's really annoying because he was actually having a really good game. He was winning most of the balls forward in the air up against Beckles.
Yeah, and I think that was a key part of our game plan, and we lost that when he went off.
Yeah, absolutely. We lost the ability to pin them further forward, and win those headers on and get back and armour up the pitch as well to win on, get on the end of the flick-ons and get the balls into the box. So it was so frustrating. It's a really stupid one. You know what? We noticed this when he walked off the pitch. Richie Wellens went over to shake his hand, and I thought, you know what you're doing there, pal. He was being an absolute bellend for the whole game, and I'll happily call him that. I couldn't care less. He's a nasty piece of work, quite frankly. I'm not a big fan of it. We'll talk about the incidents at the end of the game later, but yeah, so frustrating to give that away. And then obviously you go. The most annoying thing is you got another. At the end of the day, we had about 20 minutes left after that, didn't we? Because it was added on time. I get full credit to Pratley as well. I mean, we should definitely get I think you mentioned, didn't we? We should get the Orient physio in to work with our players, because the recovery Pratley made from that vicious assault was incredible, wasn't it?
You could have a look at my back as well while he's there. But yeah, it's just.
I mean, Pratley's a wily old fox, isn't he? He's a player who's been on for 37, 38 now. He knows the game. He's not stupid.
Yeah.
He's played Edmonton there, and that's where Edmonton's got to learn. Don't react to something like that. Don't shrug the lad off like that. Don't put your hands up that high. Let him be the one who drags you or whatever, and then he's the one who gets in trouble. So,
or just have a quiet word with the ref and say, "Look, ref, on that corner, he was absolutely all over me. So, I'm not saying do anything now, but next corner, just keep an eye out for it.
Just watch him. Yeah. So that's where he's got to be a little bit smarter. That's where someone like Dennis doesn't get caught out with someone like, because he's not stupid enough to get involved in it. Yeah, he's a bit older, a bit wiser. So there you go. Into this, I mean, like I said, the next 20 minutes, we were the better side with 10 men. We dominated a lot of the play towards the end of the second half, and we could have easily got into the break level again, but didn't quite work out. Getting at half time, and start the second half, I thought we were a little bit slow out the box. I think Orient maybe realised they needed to be a bit stronger. It was fairly even, and then comes Orient's third goal. We've got to talk about this in detail, because
it's one of the worst refereeing decision goals that I've ever seen. Probably the worst, actually.
Yeah.
Worst.
Everyone's either been there at the game or they've watched it on the video. So let's sort of talk through it. So it's sort of a ball's headed forward by Beckles, and then one of the Orient players tries to flick it on towards Drinnan. Now, Drinnan is coming back from miles offside. I mean miles, I mean like 10 yards offside.
He's not in the shot on the video footage. No, he's that far offside. When
the ball was first played, he's not. Yeah, so he's at least 10 yards when the ball's first played. So the ball's coming through to him, and Corey Whelan's going to intercept because he's like panicking. I need to stop this getting through. But Huntington puts his hand up, saying he's offside. You don't need to touch it. So Whelan's only going for the ball because he thinks it might get to Drinnan, and he pulls out of it. And then Drinnan's like, "Thank you very much. I'll take this." He doesn't even wait to see whether the ball's touching him or anything. He's like, I'm going. Lino doesn't put his flag up. And I'm surely the Lino's seen him coming back there and saying, I've got to flag here.
Yeah.
He's basically just missed it. He's just completely... Apparently, someone pointed this out to us, the Lino didn't give a single offside in that game.
Apparently neither one did. Which is crazy.
Is that true?
Yeah, apparently... I mean, I can't think of any... I'm going to have to check this now, right? Because
we've got the who scored stats up somewhere here, so I'm going to have a quick look at them while we're talking here. But yeah, so he doesn't give it. Drinnan gets away, and Huntington's in a position then where he's looking and thinking, I can't bring this lad down here, because if I bring him down, because I'm struggling, because he's a lot younger and a bit pacey than Huntington. He did well to keep up with him, to be fair. He's like, if he brings him down, he's thinking, well, I'm getting sent off here, basically, and we're down to 9 men, and then we've got no chance So he leaves it, lets him go off, and he scores the goal. Then they argue the toss with him. What Simo revealed after the game was apparently the fourth official, who was standing pretty much next to Simo, told the officials, because they were afterwards, they were thinking, did he touch that? Whelan, did he touch that? Because if he did, we're going to give this. And the fourth official said, yes, he did touch it, which we can now see from the highlights footage and from the pitch side blues that the club put out. He did not touch the ball.
No.
Even if he did, that's not a deliberate pass in that direction. It isn't. He's tried to put a tackle in, and it might have clipped his heel slightly. That does not count as a new phase of play. It doesn't. It just doesn't under the rules. So,
But as well, that fourth official, he was only fourth official because he was demoted from being a ref because he missed an absolute horror of a red card in another game.
Yes, well, we found that, didn't we? I sent you the thing for it. Now, he was, basically, it's... I'm trying to keep calm on this one. It's very difficult. I can't find the stats for in terms of offsides. I'm trying to see if there is anyone I can find out. Leyton Orient match. That's it. I'm trying to do this on the fly here. Anyway, so basically, as a result, they get the third goal, and then we've got a mountain to climb at that point, haven't we? That's the problem. So it's it was one of those ones where at that point you're like, you know what, this is going to be really tough. But 100% credit to the team, though. The way they came back was brilliant, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And the fans as well. I think the fans were absolutely brilliant. And there's some games over the years where even if we've been playing all right, if we've been losing, the fans just get a bit like, oh, boo, this is crap. But the fans were really, really getting behind the team and trying all we could. And, it wasn't to be. But if the players put in that effort, we're going to win 99 games out of 100,
Yeah, 100%. We definitely will. It's, I can't find the offside stats. I'm trying to find them there, but there you go. Yeah, it's we got sent a video in a group chat that we're in, didn't we, of someone who filmed it from where the Toby Carvery is, down the far end of White Road near the Tesco during the game, and you can hear the crowd so loud, weren't they?
Yeah.
Which shows you how behind the team they were, really, weren't they? So yeah, frustrating that goal was given, and it's annoying that on the ITV highlights they described it as a defensive error. I mean, he's miles offside. Surely you can see that when you're looking at the footage. It's
exactly
stupid. Absolutely.
Yeah,
stupid.
and to be fair, Leyton Orient fans on Twitter have been saying we got away with that. That was a terrible decision.
Definitely. But yeah, 6 minutes later, we did actually get ourselves back into the game. We kept going forward. Finback did brilliantly to win the ball in the Orient half. Played it to Mellish, and he played his part, to be fair, and get this. He laid off back perfectly down the wing, puts the ball across that Dennis can't quite get to, but it falls nicely for Gibson. And give him credit, because a lot of the times this season he's snatched at chances, hasn't he? He's basically took them in too quickly. He set himself, he took his time, and first time played the ball nicely past Vigor, who dived the opposite way, and we're back in the game at that point. And we fair play, we dominated the chances really for the rest of the game. I don't think Holy really had another save to make when I think of it off the top of my head.
No,
I'm thinking they had they had 4 shots on target in the game, Orient. So I mean, they might have had some long range one that went over, but I never felt like we were going to concede again in that match. That's the thing. I felt if there's going to be another goal, it'll be us. And we pushed forward. We had a few chances. I mean, Pratley should have been booked for pushing over Mellish near the edge of the box that gave us a free kick as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, Vigouroux should have been booked in the first half for time wasting.
He was booked in the 93rd minute for it?
Yeah. Which, at the same time, you can't blame him for still time wasting in the 93rd minute.
No, don't
if he'd had a booking in the first half, he wouldn't be doing that.
Yeah, that's what the thing. The ref could have said then at that point, right, if he tried it again, said he blows whistle, say no more, that's it, or you're going off. And he's the kind of ref who would send a player off for that, probably.
Yeah.
It was just so frustrating, wasn't it? And Callum Guy had a free kick that went over the bar. There was a couple of sort of close chances. And Gibson wasted one late on where he should really have played the ball in the box instead of having a shot. It was pretty annoying, that. But yeah, Orient held on, and I heard a few people leaving the ground saying, if Orient were rubbish. They weren't rubbish. They were very effective. They didn't have a great game, but they've got clear quality in their team, in someone like Archibald and Beckles at the back, obviously, and Moncur in midfield. So
yeah, I think, in recent years, we've played top teams in this league and been like, wow, they're a good team. Yeah. And we weren't getting that with Orient. We were the better team with 10 men. And, if anything, it gives us a feeling, well, if we can play like that against the so-called best team in the league with 10 men, against so-called lesser teams when we have 11 men, we've got nothing to fear whatsoever.
It showed out, how important what Simo made, a real focus point in pre-season was our fitness, wasn't it? And how important that has become, because we looked so fit. We didn't look tired. If you were watching that as a neutral, you just arrived watching maybe the last half an hour, and no one told you that Carlisle were down to 10 men, you wouldn't have guessed it.
No.
You maybe would have guessed it slightly up front because we were a little bit short up top, weren't we? But bar that, you would have thought that, this team's on top here.
The sending off just killed the game as well. Like, if you were a neutral, before the Edmondson sending off, it was such an entertaining game.
Yeah.
And the red card just killed the entertainment from the game, really. And it just sort of meant that they were just sort of holding on a bit, and we were desperately clutching to get something together. We weren't stringing together as nice to watch moves as we were when we had 11 men.
Yeah. Come the end of the season, if they go up, they'll look back at that game and think that was a massive result for them, because they dug in and got the result, and they knew they were in a game. They definitely did. But there you go. Right, well, let's have our 6-second review then. Let's see what Greg had to say about this one. He was not a happy bunny on Saturday. How was he feeling earlier today on Sunday by the time he sent me this?
Morning, Lee. I'm not in as much of a ranting mode now. Mistakes aside, at the beginning of the game, I thought we played really, really well yesterday. We showed a real togetherness, a willingness to fight and get stuck in yesterday. I thought we were better than Leyton Orient over the 90 minutes. Just those two mistakes for the first two goals. I thought we looked fitter than them. I thought we looked stronger than them. I thought technically we looked better than them. For a team that's top of the league now, I think if we can get on a run, we're more than capable of catching them. You can't go on about yesterday without discussing the referee's performance. He was abysmal. He had no control over the game. He was consistently inconsistent. He got the big decisions all wrong yesterday. One of the worst refereeing performances that I've ever seen. And after 9 minutes, I think I said yesterday, he's the worst we've had this season, and it just got worse and worse and worse. As for the coin throwing, it's not good, it's not clever, but neither is Gordon. If we get punished, Wellens needs punished as well. So up the Blues.
He touched on the coin throw there. We'll go into that in a minute. I wouldn't disagree with pretty much all Greg said, except for the one exception thing that I would say he did get one big decision right, which was to send off Edmondson. That's the only thing I'd say.
But you could argue that if
he got the penalty right, it wouldn't have happened.
Well, there's that. But you could argue that maybe if he'd have collared Pratley before Edmondson reacted, but
or
Edmondson shouldn't have reacted that way. End of story.
Or if you've been watching it closely, you should have booked Pratley as well. What Pratley did was worth a booking. What Edmondson did was worth a red card. That's our fault. So we're trying to be fair here. We're not saying he got every single thing wrong, but near enough. That's what we're saying, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, before we start talking about the players, let's talk about the coin throws. Now, the Barrow fans are certainly enjoying this on Twitter, but I mean, they can say what the hell they want. I couldn't care less. There's a big difference between one person chucking a coin and someone throwing a bloody firework onto the pitch, for God's sake, during the game as well. We stand behind the away dugout, don't we, at Brunton Park?
On pretty much the back row as well, so we can see all the way down.
Yeah. I didn't see a coin thrown. I'm not saying one wasn't. I'm sure the CCTV will show one up if they do. A coin did land on the floor, which he picked up and made up, and he walked a fair distance to pick it up, so it wasn't thrown at him. I can tell you that much. He walked a good distance, picked it up, made a big show of picking up and putting it in his pocket, like saying, thanks very much for the money. Not as if he was angry about the throwing thing, he was just being an arse, basically. They got some stick during the game, but they were the way they were acting up during the game. You're going to get stick if the way they behave, and he spent half his time outside the technical area. He was acting the prat. He was, wanted to shake Edmondson's hand as well. I mean, stuff like that's just pathetic.
Yeah. And do you know what? Leyton Orient have never been that kind of club.
No, I've no problem with Leyton Orient, the club. And to be honest, I've got no problem with pretty much all the players there. I mean, what Pratley did, I don't have a massive problem with, because it's part of the game. You've got to be smarter. That's why Edmonton has to be smarter in that situation. No problem with him at all. No problem with the keeper with time wasting. Well, every keeper does it. It just needs the ref to clamp down, and that's the problem.
Yeah.
My problem is the behaviour of that bench. I mean, the big ginger lad Harold on the bench as well. He was arguably probably worse than Wellens in his behaviour during the game. He was proper goading the fans behind the dugout. They were getting stick, but tell you what, we can hear pretty much everything on there, and there was nothing that bad said to them. Let me tell you that.
No.
And
Graham Westley received far worse.
Yeah. Steve Evans has received worse in recent seasons, and he takes. You know what? He takes a lot of stick, but he takes it on the chin, doesn't he? He's like it's part of the game.
Well, one of his chins.
Yeah, very good. But yeah, Wellens was just acting the absolute prat for most of the game. His behaviour was embarrassing at times.
As well, his comments were that he was having coins thrown at him for 90 minutes.
He was not. He was not.
I mean, you and me, neither of us saw any of it. A few other people have said that they didn't see anything either. If it did happen, it would have been one person. That's the only way that I can logically think that no one could see it. And, if that person did it, they should be banned. Absolutely. But
CCTV will pick it up if it's there.
Yeah,
let me say
definitely.
That. But you know what? Like I said, I'm not saying they deserve to have coins for them. I'm not in the slightest. And it's embarrassing if someone has done that. But the way they behave was pathetic. And his comment, it's interesting. His comments on the first clip I saw on Orient's Twitter were quite positive, saying, "Well, the crowd really got behind them and stuff." And a little bit patronising, saying, it's like a low league FA Cup tie something. I was like, sod off. Just because we have fans that actually get behind the team. If you're not getting that your ground, complain about it down there.
But he made some comments a few years ago, and I desperately tried Googling to find these comments last night, and I couldn't find them anywhere. But it was after we played Swindon when he was manager there, and he was getting some stick that day because his shoes were just absolutely dreadful. And but he said something after the game like, the league needs to clamp on about the hostile atmosphere that there is at Carlisle. And I couldn't find these comments anywhere, but he definitely said something about that a few years ago.
Yeah, I'll have to try and dig them out possibly. I found one from when he had a 2-0 defeat, but he's I can't see anything in there saying about us, unfortunately. I'm sure it'll be there somewhere, but yeah, he's a good manager. I can't deny that. He's done a great job there, but like I said, he's a dick. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. He's not a particularly nice person. Would I be happy if he was manager of us? Probably not, to be honest. I think I'd rather have someone like Simo there, and a bit more calm and measured with what he says and stuff like that. So yeah, it's one of those ones, isn't it? Not happy if someone's done that, but at the same time, he maybe needs to take a little bit of a look in the mirror at his behaviour of him and his coach and stuff as well. I think it's fair to say.
Definitely. I mean, with regards to the ref, you've got here, where do you even start? For me, there was a foul on Finn Back very early in the game, and sometimes sort of there's borderline fouls, and I'll look over to the ref to see will he blow for it kind of thing. And I didn't even look at the ref because it was that obvious. And to be honest, the Leyton Orient players stopped playing.
Yeah, that's the thing. I watched the video back and I thought, they've gone, it's a foul. I'll give him away soft foul. I'll get. And they were like, oh shit, he's not giving this.
Yeah.
Oh, get on with it now then.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous. Because my first thought was, if he's not going to give the foul, why is he not booking for diving?
Yeah, exactly.
He went right down, and it's like straight away. If he decided to dive, fine, do it. Make that decision early on. Set a standard there. But he didn't, and he missed so much. And it's interesting that we found afterwards a tweet from Ipswich fans because he refereed their trophy game, I think it was against Cambridge the other night, and he booked a player. He gave a player a second booking after 19 minutes for simulation for diving in the box. And you watch it back, he gets tackled. It's not a dive in a million years. It's an appalling decision. And his reward for that is to get referee our game. I'm not being funny. He should not be refereeing a game next Saturday. He probably is down already to do one in midweek. Fine. Yeah, that's already done. But he should not be rewarded with another game next weekend.
No.
In fact, it really should be refereeing at national level for a little bit to get himself back up to any sort of standard. Like I said, 10 games, 3 red cards.
Exactly.
Big questions about whether he's actually up to being a Football League referee. I don't think he is. I think he was dreadful. And not being funny, but I've not heard a crowd boo a referee so much in such a long time.
Yeah.
Surely he's walking off that pitch and thinking to himself, I've had a bad game here. I'm getting so much stick. Like, yeah, you occasionally get them off where they get booed a little bit, but nothing like that. That was...
No.
It was so loud. And like you said, the crowd were fantastic. They really got behind the team, and it was, you know, you can always tell it's a good atmosphere and a good game, and the main stand and the paddock are getting the songs going, can't you? That's when you really realise it's, you know, this is a good atmosphere here.
But as well, I mean, at full time, we've won games and less people have stayed behind. See the players go down the tunnel. Like,
I mean, it's
most
partly
of the
because
crowd was staying behind.
Partly because you wanted to give the ref and their players a bit of stick.
I mean, that's true, but
yeah. And then well, say their players, their coaching staff as much as anything. But there you go. But yeah, I mean, we'll talk about maybe some of the player performances in a sec. But overall, I said this. I think it was Lummy actually said it on Radio Coming. I think it needs to be shouted about a bit more. This kind of reminds you of that game in the season where we won the League Two title, where we lost that game against Wickham, and we played so well in that game, and we just lost it to that late goal. But no one was disappointed. Everyone's like, that's a good performance. If you're going to lose, there's a way to lose, and that's the way to do it. Leaving everything on the table. Take the positives from that. Move on. And we can get a good result on Tuesday. It's going to be tough with the injuries and now a suspension to Edmondson, but we can at least get a point. That's got to be aiming to get a point from that game, surely.
Definitely. I mean, to be honest, it wouldn't surprise me if there's another couple of names added to the injury list who maybe took... studs to the knee at some point and have swollen up a little bit.
Well, that's an interesting one, actually. Another one I noticed there was a video someone put up of all the bad mistakes the referee made, and there was a lot. They couldn't even fit them all in because Twitter has a limit of 2 minutes, 20 seconds. The one where Jack Armour gets done for tripping their lad on the edge of the box when he doesn't trip him. It was a pathetic dive. Just before that, Mellish was fouled. He's played on it. Their lad trods on his ankle. You watch it back. He stands on his
Mellish
ankle.
never stays down, ever.
No. That was really poor from the ref to miss that as well. But there you go. I think we've talked about him enough. We could go on. We could do a whole episode about him and how bad he was. But I'm sure he'll be refereeing at Football League level again next week because they'll never do anything about it. But there you go. Some individual player performances. I want to give a little shout out to Jaden Harris who came on because I had a few people have been moaning a bit when he came on. Like, he's no bloody good, this lad, whatever, anything. I thought he had a really good game. I thought he got about the pitch. It was a game that suited him because it was very much a battle. And he won the ball in some really good areas, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. And he's got good technical ability with that good physical ability as well. It's a shame that Moxon had to come off. But, Harris certainly did a good job.
He's going to take a bit of time to refine. We've said this a few times. He's got a 3-year contract for a reason because we know he's a bit more of a project. He's going to take a little while to get him to shape him into be a midfield because someone did say this, didn't they? They don't know what kind of player he is. They can't work it out. But is he an attacking midfielder? Is he a defensive? He's more box to box. He's got good attributes for all those positions. It's working out what he's best at, and also maybe getting his decision making to be a bit better. Because at the moment, that's not quite up to scratch on occasion. Sometimes he makes poor decisions with passes and things like that, and sometimes goes in for rash tackles. But he's got all the physical ability you could want. Second half, he was one who was really helping drive us forward. He was winning the ball deep in their half and linking up quite well with Back, actually, and Gibson, to be fair, on the right. So there's a really good player there, and I genuinely think he give him time, he'll make a good difference. He'll probably be back on the bench on Tuesday because Moxon, we expect he's going to be back. It's just stitches to
Well, you say that, though, but given our choice of strikers, it wouldn't surprise me if we almost went like 6 in midfield and played sort of a striker in behind Dennis. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a fair point. That maybe you stick Harris into there and play Gibson just off Dennis. Maybe and let him be like a number 10 who's got a bit of a free role to roam about on either wing to back up the wing backs or get into the middle for chances. That might be the only option, to be honest, because we've just got no one fit at the moment. And Toby, bless him, it was lovely to see Toby back on the pitch. It really was. But you can tell he's not. That's his first minute, isn't he? He's not even had a reserve game to play. We've had to bring him in, and he put himself about. He did okay, but he never looked like he was quite up to speed, and that's not his fault in the slightest. No. He's going to have to basically do what Huntington did and build his fitness up in a match environment instead of having the chance to do it in reserve games, which not ideal, but I'm sure he'll endeavour to do as well as he can. Callum Guy got man of the match at the game. I think we've sort of an agreement with maybe Finn Back. We'll talk about Finn Back in a sec, but I thought Callum had a great game, one of his best games for quite a while as well, and he's had some really good games recently. Yeah,
I mean, I feel our game plan a little bit was to punish them out wide a little bit. That was certainly our initial game plan. And one thing Callum Guy was really good at is in this system, the wing-backs can often find themselves in acres of space. And Guy was constantly just picking out sort of 30-yard passes to both Armour and back in acres of space, and they were pretty much all absolutely spot on.
Yeah, he made a big difference. He was spraying the ball about. He was making his tick, wasn't he, in the second half? And he had a very tough task, didn't he, in that midfield when you think about it. Because like I said, Harris was all about the pitch. He was getting up and down. Guy was almost sometimes playing as the only sort of central midfielder, but he played it so well. He really did. Mellish did push into midfield second half. That helped as well. But yeah, there you go. We mentioned there, Finn back. Another great game for him, coming back from his injury. He getting up and down the pitch. Got his assist as well. Setting up Gibson for his goal. He's got a bright future at him, hasn't he, that lad?
Yeah, he's got a knack as well, where sort of he gets into tackles and sort of, I don't want to say 50-50 tackles, but when both players are sort of going in for the same tackle and the ball can ricochet everywhere, it ricochets in his favour a hell of a lot more. And I think that is a sort of skill in itself. I think it's his low centre of gravity, and he's just really determined to get the ball out. Yeah. More 100%. So than his opponent.
100%, yeah. Like I said, keeping him fit is a key thing for me, as well as Ellis did when he was in the team. I think back's got just a little bit more going forward at the moment. So there you go. Before we move on to do a quick League Two roundup, I want to give a little shout out to Huntington as well, actually, because despite the fact that we conceded 3 goals, I thought he had another brilliant game. Bear in mind, their lad Drinan up front, he's got a little bit of pace on him, but he's a tall lad. I don't think Drinan won a single header all game. I thought him and Whelan judged the aerial ball forward really, really well, actually.
Yeah, I mean, Huntington does every week, doesn't he? You know, he wins most of his headers, and that's what you see is what you get with him.
And actually, you know, you mentioned Guy about spraying those balls about. Huntington was doing similar. Some of them were a little bit overhit, but he's got a bit. I think it maybe goes a bit unnoticed. He's got a bit of ability on the ball, hasn't he? Really, you know, he can play the ball out a bit as well. So. Yeah, fantastic game from him. I think they all had great games, to be fair. And one of those days, you know, on another day, you get that equaliser and you go away and you think that is one of the, you know, the points of the season. It wasn't to be, but let's not get downhearted. Let's try and be positive for the Stockport game, which we'll talk about.
I mean, I think if there was an equaliser, the ground would have just gone absolutely crazy. Yeah, it would have been.
We did hear reports of when Edmonton equalised, some poor lad apparently dislocated his knee in the Warwick.
Yeah.
Hopefully it wasn't that bad, but it sounded like it. There was quite some scenes when the fans were celebrating. So, young lads, you know, you're enjoying yourselves in the Warwick and keep it up, but be careful, please. Pick up anyone who falls over, God. Right, let's do a little quick League Two roundup then, Mike. I've not put this in the running order, so I'm I don't know if you've got the results up there yourself, but let's have a quick look through them. Obviously, we lost 3-2. I mean, looking for Crawley Town. That's a hell of a result for them, beating Mansfield Town 3-2. I think there was a couple of goals from Ashley Nedison in that game, wasn't there, as well? So that'll be getting the X-Files.
Yeah, well, I think all their goals... Nedison scored at the start of the second half, but pretty much all the goals were in the first 46 minutes. But
Yeah. So brilliant result for them because, you know, Mansfield are one of the best teams in the division this season, no doubt about that. When looking down through there, Tranmere Rovers' run of clean sheets comes to an end. They drew 1-1 at Harrogate. A bit of a surprise, that one, really. A bit of Harrogate getting a draw there. And then Grimsby actually getting a draw against Bradford. That was 2 teams flying high, but a bit of a stalemate. Quite a lot of draws, actually, looking down through the table. I mean,
Salford 0, Stockport 2 is one that stands out as well.
Well, yeah, we'll see. We'll talk about Stockport in a minute, but that's a great result for Stockport. What you could class as a derby, maybe. I'm sure Stockport won't want to class it as a derby these days, but it is what it is, I suppose. I think the clash of the day, though, other than our game, was probably because there was a few 3-2s, wasn't it? It was Stevenage 2, Northampton 3. So Stevenage's run of home wins comes to an end, doesn't it, with that result? Some apparently unsavoury scenes after the game there, possibly. Sounds like Northampton players celebrating in the home dressing room afterwards, something like that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's what the reports were. So Steve Evans, in the interviews and all the chat I've heard about this game, comes across as the calm, reasoning voice, which is quite a shock, really. He got booked, apparently, for something he said, so he probably wasn't that calm reasoning, but he was a bit like, you know, their behaviour was unacceptable. Thinking, Steve, maybe, you know, sometimes you bite off a bit more than you can chew, don't you? So there you go.
Yeah, I'm just having a look now, and so it was 1-1, and then Northampton scored to make it 2-1 on the 82nd, and then Stevenage scored to make like what they thought was the equaliser on the 85th. but then Northampton scored the winner in the 87th. So it just seemed like a chaotic last 10 minutes, and then obviously Danny Hilton got sent off on injury time. So
that was their first win in 3 games as well. So 4 games for Northampton Town. So big result for them, and they were helped by the fact that Mansfield lost, which means that there's now a 4-point gap from Northampton to Mansfield. Although Mansfield do have a game in hand, like we do. I mean, if we were to win our game in hand, we go to 27. So we'd only be 3 points behind Northampton if we beat Harrogate in our game in hand. Obviously, there's a couple of games before then as well that things could go wrong in, but there you go. So yeah, Leyton Orient at the top of the table with 33 points, and they've got a game in hand on Stevenage and Northampton. I still think they're going to be right up there at the end of the season. Whether they finish top or not, I don't know, but I wouldn't be amazed if they were top 3. I know people said, like I said, didn't think they were that impressed by them, but I think that they've got a bit of quality there. So there you go. Down near the bottom, it just gets worse and worse for Hartlepool, doesn't it? Really, third loss in a row. Colchester getting dragged into there as well now. Though they've got a game in hand, but not looking great for them.
No, and Rochdale lost again, didn't they? But
well, I mean, Rochdale's last 6 games, they've won 3, lost 3.
Yeah.
If they kept that for the rest of the season, I think they'd probably be just about safe, wouldn't they? Really?
Yeah.
You're looking at 1.5 points a game. I think that'd probably be enough for them. So they're probably not too disheartened. I mean, losing to Wimbledon's probably the disappointing thing because they're right up there with them, aren't they? So there you go. Right, well, that's the first half of the show done then, Mike. We'll be back in just a second to do the preview of the Stockport game.
Hi, I'm Thomas Holy, and you are listening to Brunton Bugle.
Big Thomas. Not a great weekend for him, but I'm sure he'll bounce back for this game, hopefully. So
he looked absolutely distraught at full time as well.
He hates conceding goals, doesn't he? We learned that from the interview. He's a very angry man about conceding goals, but there you go.
Well, have you heard that Manuel Neuer, he cannot watch the German equivalent of Match of the Day? He physically hates watching goals get scored. He can't stand it.
There you go. Yeah. Right, well, let's get on to the preview section then, Mike. We've got no quiz questions, but we haven't had time to sort anything out like that, so we're just going to bash through this. So first up, we've got the Behind Enemy Lines section, and this week we spoke to Russ from the Scarf Bagara War podcast. So Russ, it was good. I had a good little chat with Russ, did one for his podcast as well, so that'll be coming out in the next couple of days. We talked about the fact that they were back in the EFL after 11 years and their experience of playing in National League North level. I mean, we remember in the National League, but imagine being in National League North level. He was quite disparaging about Workington, which I pulled him up on as a West Cumbrian, but there you go. But yeah, I think he said going to Colwyn Bay and places like that. I mean, I thought, wow, that's.
Well, as well, people forget Stockport were a solid Championship club.
Yeah,
really not
90s,
that long ago.
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago. So yeah, it can't have been fun for them. But the fact that they've not hit high expectations yet this season, and we also talked about basically the very high number of player links between the two sides. We've obviously got Christian Dennis, Paul Huntington, and Ben Barkley in our squad, and Paddy Madden in there. So there you go. So here's the chat I had with Russ earlier today. So today we've got Russ, who's a Stockport fan, coming on to talk about all things Stockport County. Russ, it's probably fair to say Stockport County in the last decade or so have been through some pretty tough times. But obviously in the last few years things have really picked up. I think there was a takeover of your club, wasn't there? And new investors came in, put a bit of money into the club. And you must be delighted the fact that you're back at EFL level after, being in the non-league for so long, and particularly having to play at National League North level, because we went down to non-league. We only played in the conference as it was then for one season. To play at the level below that doesn't bear thinking about.
Yeah, it's horrific. It really is. So we've been out of the league for 11 years, National League North for 6 years, and you're right. It's horrific. Playing teams that you sort of see them in the FA Trophy and the FA Cup qualifying rounds and things like that. Going to Colwyn Bay away and Workington and all this kind of stuff. So
I've been working to this. I say it's not that bad a place actually. Having been to Borough Park, it isn't the greatest place in the world. So there you go.
Well, it's probably a nice place, but when you've got to play these village teams, and
right.
we were getting beat by North Ferriby at home, and they brought 7 fans. So it's horrific. Christian Dennis did well for us actually in some of those days. So we'll talk about him later. But yeah, got investment now. We've got a nice new shiny owner who's is somewhere worth between 5 and 800 million. He's local. He's a local person. He's a local Stockport lad. He's a Stockport County fan, and he wants to get us back into the Championship within the next sort of 5 years. So we're really looking forward to it, and we're glad to be back in the EFL. That's where we think we belong.
Well, getting back into the EFL, there was quite big expectations for you this season, wasn't there? Because you won a National League title last season in what was a pretty tough battle with two other teams that had a decent amount of backing behind them in Wrexham and Chesterfield. Yet this season, despite the fact that you've been the bookies' favourites, now you might say that was a bit unrealistic from the bookies, possibly, I don't know. And obviously a squad that's packed with quality, you found it quite tough. What's gone wrong so far, would you say?
I think it's turnover of players and setting expectations. So not only were we bookies' favourite, but the manager and the club basically said we want to get up again. Which is good to have ambition.
Yeah.
You want to be able to say that, but the turnover of players, we've brought 8 or 9 in and let some go on loan and things, and I think the jump in quality when we were down in the National League, it's changed since you were down there.
Yeah.
There's lots of really good clubs there, and there's this wide consensus that if you do well in the National League, you'll automatically do well in League Two, and you'll double bounce in some cases. There's been no evidence of that, obviously,
Yeah.
but that's what everybody thinks down there. It's not been the case. The jump up has been more than I think we expected, and then adding pressure to ourselves in terms of expectation. I think it's just taking us a while to adjust.
Yeah, it is one of those things that I think a lot of people do expect the fact that, if a team that runs away in the National League, they're going to be right up the top the next season. And actually, when you look back in recent seasons, it doesn't actually happen that often, does it really? I mean, Barrow and Harrogate are prime examples of teams that didn't really set the world on fire when they came up. I know different circumstances with COVID. It's obviously a lot more challenging back then, wasn't it? In terms of your summer recruitment, I'm looking at it. I mean, you signed Fraser Horsfall, who's a defender who's done really well at Northampton Town last season. You got Chris Hussey, who's a player with bags of experience at this level as well, and Kyle Wotton, I think we all saw scoring for fun for Notts County in the National League last season. Is it a feeling then maybe is a few too many players coming in and maybe disrupting the apple cart a little bit too much?
I think so, yeah, but they are starting to slowly click now. So Fraser Horsfall is just a Rolls Royce of a defender compared to what we've had in the last 11 years. He's plays at the back for us. Carl Wotton gets through so much work. He's just a nuisance. He doesn't score many goals, but we're starting to see his value to the team now. And like you say, Hussey, there's more as well. It's just a case of getting those lads to click with the lads that were here last season. We've still got a couple of lads that were here from the National League North days as well. So I think it takes time. The natives are getting restless, before yesterday, because we got a good win yesterday against Salford away, but before that, the natives were getting restless, and everyone started to think, "Oh, does Challoner need to go?" Well, no, he doesn't. Just let's give him time to get these players gelling and clicking, and I think we'll be okay.
Yeah, one thing I think has been pointed out, I think, by some of the sort of League Two podcasts and things like that, is the fact that discipline seems to be a bit of an issue for you this season. I mean, is it 5 red cards to your 4 wins in the league or something like that? I think it is. Is that a bit of a problem, or is it just a bit of bad luck maybe on occasion?
I think it's a bit of both. It's becoming a problem because 5 red cards. I think the next team is 2 red cards in the disciplinary league. Yeah. So it is becoming a problem. The red cards. I mean, we could talk about referees all day, but the red cards, some of them have just been absolutely stupid. Others have been 2 yellows. I think only 2 of the red cards I would say were proper red cards. Camp's 2-footed in on a player last Saturday, and then Madden. He's an experienced player. We were getting frustrated, and he left his foot in on somebody as they were on the floor. That kind, bit of a David Beckham, World Cup '98 kind of thing. So I don't think it's a massive problem. But if you start to top them up, then too many incidents become a problem, don't they? So yeah, something we need to curtail.
Yeah. You mentioned his name there, Madden, obviously Paddy Madden. Carlisle fans, he's always a point of discussion with us because we brought him over from, I think it was from Bohemians, we signed him from in about it would have been 2011, I think it was, early 2011, I think the summer, or the January transfer window then. He never quite hit the ground running at all for us. I think he was unlucky in that we had a very good front line in League One and he was struggled to really make an impact into that, and Greg Abbott was reluctant to make any changes and bring him in at times. He went out on loan to Yeovil, did really well at Yeovil, and ended up making a permanent move there. And our fans will always look back and go, why didn't we just keep him off that loan at Yeovil? Well, he didn't want to stay, essentially. That was it. He wanted to move on and get regular football. I mean, he's been brilliant for you, hasn't he, really? It's a strange one, wasn't it? He took the step down from League One at Fleetwood to come to you guys. I mean, I think inevitably money's probably played a big, and a long contract has played a big part in him wanting to go there. He must be quite a popular figure with your fans.
Yeah, no, he definitely is. I mean, I wouldn't say he single-handedly dragged us up from the National League, but he was the player that when we started to wobble, he was the one getting us through games and scoring goals. He scored the first goal in the final game against Halifax to basically put the nail in the coffin of Wrexham. So, to bring us up, he's really good. He's the captain. He scored yesterday. I think he's got 4 in 4 now. So he's really, really good. Yeah, and it's surprising hearing other teams say he's not been very good for them. I mean, we spoke to a Yeovil podcast last season. They couldn't speak highly enough of him. I think he scored in playoff finals for them and things.
I think we are the only club where he's failed. Right. Typically, it's just rotten luck. Like I said, at the time, we had Lee Miller, who was, he played for Scotland. We'd signed him for Middlesbrough, and he was outstanding. And he was the central striker, and he was never going to get him out of the team. I think essentially at the time that was the problem, really.
Yeah, I mean he's fantastic for us. He'll be a nuisance on Tuesday night.
I'm sure he will.
And he's generally people's, to score within 90 minutes on the betting slip. So yeah.
Okay. Well, let's talk about a couple of the links in the Carlisle squad to you guys. Ben Barkley. So obviously we've got him on a season-long loan from you. He won't be available for Tuesday night. He's injured anyway, so he wouldn't have featured either way. Yeah, he came in and there was kind of reaction when he first arrived of like, oh, we signed a player on loan from another League Two club. But then when you sort of looked into it, like, oh, she's got a decent pedigree. And you know what? He started the season so well, and he was so unlucky to pick up an injury when he did, that like there's a genuine question of like, why did you guys load him out? I mean, your defence must be very good. And when we see you sort of struggling to get away from the bottom at the start of the season, we were thinking, why is he going out? Is it just one of those things where you've just got such an embarrassment of riches at times? You had the opportunity to let him go out on loan.
If I knew the answer, I'd tell you, honestly, because we got him in at the start of last season, I think it was. And when he came in, he came from Accrington, and he was ever present for them, League One, and we were thinking, great, we've got a stellar centre half on the same lines of Paddy Madden, Anthony Sarcevic, that kind of thing. Yeah. And for whatever reason, it just didn't really click for him, and he went out on loan to Yeovil last season. They love him. Yeah. And then we all thought he's going to come back and he's going to get into the team now. But we just started signing other centre halves, and he couldn't get into the team. I think there's a school of thought that he's too expensive. He's probably playing at a level where he's too expensive to let go, kind of thing. Or no one wants to pay his wages. I suspect we're sort of footing some of his wages for you, for you lot. And he's got a long contract. So it just doesn't make sense. So a loan makes more sense than sort of getting rid of him at the moment. But I like him. I thought he was really good when he played. I'm surprised he's gone.
Yeah, he's looked really good. He had good ability on the ball. He's going to find it tough to get into the team because that's one area where we are very, very strong. Well, we've got, in fact, I've just realised we've got another one of your former players, Paul Huntington, in our team. Now he's a Carlisle lad, Paul. So obviously coming back up, it took a bit of persuading because I think his feeling was he could still play at League One level after having left Preston. In the end, he finally signed for us, and he's been outstanding since he's come in. I mean, he only had a short spell there. In fact, actually, let's touch on someone else who had a short spell with you guys. It's our boss, Paul Simpson.
Yes.
He talks through his managerial career, and he says, I've deserved to be sacked on occasions, and he's very honest and very forthright, and he doesn't hide from the fact, I've made mistakes in my career. But he said the biggest mistake ever was taken on the Stockport job, he said, because the people at the top he said, he has not got a nice word to say about the people who I'm presuming are the owners who are now long gone. Yeah. But I mean, it sounds like the time when he was in charge was chaotic to say the least.
Yeah, I mean that was just we've got a podcast series called The Dark Days, and it charts all of that. He's in there, but he's not because the Dark Days aren't because of him, but he's in there. So yeah. It was chaotic. It was on our way down. Mm-hmm. I'm still convinced to this day, and I've said it on record many times, if we'd have kept hold of Paul Simpson that season, we wouldn't have been relegated. But we were. Just a little story actually for you, for your listeners. apparently Paul Simpson replaced Jim Gannon at the club. Jim Gannon had left a whiteboard at the training centre with some transfer targets. This is from people who were there at the time, so I'm not making this up. Transfer targets, whiteboard, lots of bullet points. On that whiteboard was Jamie Vardy at the time, a transfer target for Stockport County. Apparently, when Paul Simpson came in, one of the first things he did was looked at it and said, "No, we're not having any of that rubbish," and then just got his whiteboard cleaner and wiped the board clean.
It's one of those things. As a manager, it's with hindsight, it's a wonderful thing, isn't it? You can say,
yes,
we should have
yeah,
done
of
that,
course,
this.
yeah.
But yeah, I suppose it's one of the ones he wants to put his own clean slate. But he talks about the people at the top lied to him by all accounts. So
and I don't doubt that at all. Yeah. They would have done. Yeah, absolutely. It was a horrific time for us.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the other person in our squad who had a mixed spell with you guys. I think it's fair to say, Christian Dennis. He's He told me actually recently, I was chatting with him recently, and he did say that he actually lives within walking distance of Edgeley Park still, so he's looking forward to that because he won't have to get on the bus. So he's like, hey, walk around the corner. I'm saying, fancy my chances maybe to get a goal in that game, possibly. He's a cheeky lad, you'd probably appreciate that. But yeah, his time with you was mixed, wasn't it? Because he came in and he did okay, and then he had that loan spell out, didn't he? At I think it was Macclesfield Town, wasn't it? He did really well there.
Yeah.
He actually, in fact, he told me a great story. I'm giving our listeners a little bit of insight because we've got an interview coming up with him on one of our episodes soon that I did a few weeks ago. And he told me a story about when he was being told he was going to be let go by you guys. But I think, was it Neil Young used to be our manager, was it?
Yeah.
Yes, right. He said, like, one day, like, he gets a call from Neil Young and he tells him, I've got to, come along, I'm going to have a meeting with you, come along to Cheshire Oaks, because it was somewhere in between where the two of them lived or something. Cheshire. I live down this way, so I know Cheshire Oaks is a shopping centre for it. Those who don't know, right? So he's thinking, well, he's not going to drag me all the way there just to tell me he's going to let me go or anything. He's not going to do that. Oh no, he did. He dragged him all the way there to tell him, I don't fancy you. You can go.
That doesn't surprise me with Neil Young. Yeah. Oh God.
So not a fan of his, basically.
Yeah. Don't drag up the past like that.
I'm sorry. But yeah, that's still about Christian Dennis at time with you because for us. When he first came in, his match sharpness maybe wasn't quite there, but this season he's been brilliant for us. He's obviously our top scorer, one of the top scorers in the league, and he's one of those players. And I just think any team at this level would love to have a goal scorer like him, someone who's just got that ability to finish chances.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you ask any county fan, I'm sure I'm not speaking out of turn here. We really like him. We really like him. He scored goals for us, and he's a proper out and out striker at the time. Played for us for about 3 years, I think it was. Under Alan Lord mainly, I think. I think Lordy got them. So yeah, no, I mean we really like him. I was sad to see him go. We had a tendency to do this. We still do, to be fair, letting good players go out on loan, as you know, with Ben Barkley, and then they sort of come back and haunt us, or they have a better time away. But yeah, I mean, he's a good player. He'll get. I hope he gets a good reception when on Tuesday. I mean, I hope he doesn't score, obviously, but I hope he gets a good reception because I've got nothing but good things to say about him. Really good player from our perspective. Yeah.
Well, obviously, United fans are going to be coming down on Tuesday night for this game. I think it'll be the first time we'll have been to Edgeley Park, probably in over a decade. Actually, when I think about it, because obviously you've been out of the league for 11 years, and you would have been in League 2 and we would have been in League 1, so actually it might even be longer. It might be about 12, 13 years possibly. So fans who haven't been for that long, there's probably some younger fans who've never been. What can they expect from Edgeley Park? Because I mean, it's had its developments over the years, hasn't it? And I know from one of the last times I was there was when John Ward got sacked for us and we lost 3-0 to you guys in 2008, I think it was. And we were sat on that terrace behind the goal, and it is just seats bolted onto a terrace. It's not the greatest, is it? But what can they expect?
So the terrace is still there, the railway, and that's where you'll be. It's still open. There's still no roof on it. Yeah. We've got plans to upgrade the stadium to a 20,000 seater, all singing, all dancing. New seats have been put in, new catering, so that'll be better for you. We've got a brand new shiny screen, so bring your sunglasses if you're gonna turn around and look at it, because it'll scorch your eyes. But yeah, the whole ground's had a bit of an uplift. Lots of investment, especially in the home areas. You should notice it. So it's all had a lick of paint and been done up somewhat since you probably last visited. I guess in the future years when you come, you're going to start seeing proper development to it. But yeah, it's the same old ground. It's open. You'll struggle to make noise, I guess, because it's open. Open terrace, and we've got our big stand at the other end where we generally make noise from. So. Yeah, should be good. How many are you bringing, by the way?
I think we've sold out the one on the covered side, the seats we've got there. We've got a small block there. I don't know how many we've sold for behind the goal yet, but I think we've sold a fair few. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's north of 500, 600 at least. So yeah, I think it'll be a decent following. I think it's a shame to choose night, because I've said this to other fans. It's a great away day, Stockport. So it's one of those ones we're glad to have back in the league. So we're going to go off and record a bit for your pod in a minute, Ross. Yep. But before we do, can I have a prediction for Tuesday night?
So I'm going to say we're going to build on yesterday's good result against Salford, and I know you had a defeat yesterday. You know, I know you've had a few good wins and then a defeat. So I'm going to say 2-1 to County, and be really, really positive about it. Well, there you go.
I suspect we'll have slightly different views on our podcast, but there you go.
Yeah.
Russ, thanks for your time, and all the best for the rest of the season after this midweek game.
Cheers, Lee. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks once again to Russ for that chat. Really good chat talk with him. I'm quite surprised that he was quite. Sometimes you get these ones coming up where they've been promoted as champions for that, and they're very bold about, we should be right up there, sort of thing. But he seemed quite calm and level-headed about the fact that, okay, we're struggling a bit early on, but I think people are realising that as much as people say, there's not much difference between National League and the Football League, when teams come up, they don't tend to go right up, and only a handful of exceptions do that. We've seen in recent years, teams have struggled a bit, haven't they?
Yeah, definitely. But it's worth noting as well that, the last 2 years in this league, we had Bristol Rovers last year and Bolton the year before, who were both really languishing down the table, and people were calling for the managers' heads, but both of them stuck with the managers, and both of them ended up getting promoted. So, it is a long season after all, and a lot can still happen.
I would not be 100% surprised if the same thing happened with Stockport.
Exactly.
I really think they've got a chance. They've still got quality there, so I wouldn't surprise me at all. So this game's a midweek game, Tuesday night at Edgeley Park. Referee for this one, Benjamin Speedy. It's his third season as an EFL referee. He's taken charge of 11 games so far this season, handing out 50 yellows and 3 red cards. So he's quite card happy. It's just one thing after another, this, isn't it? I can see what's coming here now.
Yeah.
Oh dear. Last season he handed out 96 yellow cards and 4 red cards in 33 games. So not actually that many, to be fair.
That's not that bad. Yeah.
His red cards, he's just been a bit card. But I don't know what it is this season. It seems referees are very card happy, don't they? Last United game he took charge of was last October, a 0-0 draw with Oldham Athletic. I think this was possibly after Chris Beach had been sacked. I think this might be one of the caretaker games Skelton had. From what I remember, it was not a memorable contest. Only one player was booked, and that was an Oldham player, so it doesn't really matter. Head-to-head record, it's going to be the 83rd meeting between the two sides. United, it's very level. It is level, actually. United and Hatters have both got 33 wins each, and the 16 games have ended in draws. Well, let's talk a bit about the Hatters squad, Mike, before we wrap things up today. It is packed with quality, isn't it? Interesting note, they've only got 2 players on loan, though, haven't they? They generally relied on, players they've already got, really. One thing that does stand out to me is they've loaned a lot of players out or let a lot of players go who were key players in the past. I mean, Ben Whitfield's gone to Barrow and he's done really well there. Scott Quigley.
Yeah, he's done really. I think, is Whitfield still the league's top assister?
I think he got another one at the weekend, so I think that's moved him clear again, 2 clear. So yeah, I mean, Quigley looked really good for Rochdale when we played against them. We all know how well Ben Barkley has done for us when he was fit. It's a strange one, isn't it? And yet, when you look at the players they've brought in, Callum Camps from Fleetwood is someone I would have loved to have had here a few years ago. I think he's a terrific player. Fraser Horsfall, mental, stupid handball against us aside, a very good defender at this level. Kyle Wotton scored goals for fun for Notts County.
Yeah, I think got 19 last season, I think.
Lemon Hay Evans, I think he's another one again who apparently I think he's done really well at Torquay. It's a strange one, isn't it, really? I mean, Chris Hussey, again, really experienced player at this level, and really wand of a left foot. It is strange how they've struggled early on, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and especially a lot of these players have been playing together for a couple of years now as well. So it's not that whole we've brought in a load of players in the summer and they haven't quite gelled yet. It's bizarre, isn't it? But yeah, I think if they stick with the manager, I wouldn't be surprised if they did another Bristol Rovers or Bolton. I really don't, because they're a team that you have to be on form to beat them. Yeah. You can't go in, and give anything less than 100%, because with the quality they've got, they will punish you.
100%, definitely. I would expect that from them. Any other players stand out for you in their squad? I mean, Sarcevic and Madden are the two obvious ones, aren't they? I think when you look at it, really.
Definitely. That Miles Hippolyte, I think he played in Scotland a bit.
He was at Scunthorpe, wasn't he? I wasn't that impressed with him for Scunthorpe, but then he was playing in one of the worst League Two sides you'll ever see at Scunthorpe. But maybe that's the reason why he didn't. I don't think he was awful, but actually, he was one of the ones like, he's okay. Ollie Crankshaw's one actually we were after. I think he was at Wigan, wasn't he? I think a couple of years ago. So I think he's one that potentially we could have had in the past, but didn't quite work out. I mean, let's talk a little bit about the Paddy Madden question. I mean, it's one of those ones, isn't it? Looking back, he's the ultimate with hindsight, isn't he? In terms of Carl United.
Yeah, well, I mean, you say with hindsight, but he was still contracted to us when he was banging in goals for Yeovil. Is the thing.
This is the problem you got with somebody like that, though. Yeovil were flying high. We were sort of struggling lower mid-table. He's out of contract at the end of that season. He's probably turning around saying, I don't want to stay at Carl United. I've not had a chance here. I want to go where I'm actually playing football and I'm quite happy down there. That's probably what's come from it. And it's very, very hard to say no to a player then, because he might come back. If he comes back and he doesn't do anything, you think to yourself, well, we're stuck with a player here now who we could have got 20, 50 grand or something from when he's out of contract at the end of the season, and put a nice sell on in there. And he was brilliant for Yeovil and they got the best out of him. But when he first came in, he'd done great in Ireland, but he was never going to get in that team, was he, when you realistically look at it?
Yeah, and, to be honest, he's testament to Greg Abbott's ability to find a player. All right, exactly, he couldn't get the most out of him, but he's the one who spotted him in Ireland and brought him over here. I
think it was a combination of him and Cav at the time, I wasn't it? Because I think Cav had his contacts over there. I think, it's...
Because I think before we got him, there were other clubs. I think Celtic were watching him at one point.
Celtic definitely were one of those. There was bigger clubs watching him. We nipped in and got him. But realistic, when you look at it, we had a front line there. We had Zoko, we had Lee Miller, we had Rory Loy flying, we had John Paul McGovern playing as one of those forwards as well. And then Jordan Cook obviously came in alone. He was brilliant when he had his loan spell with us. Realistically, it was always going to be a challenge for him to start, especially because he wanted to be that central striker in a free.
Yeah.
Lee Miller's never getting dropped. You're not dropping Lee Miller.
And Lee Miller was so crucial to the way that we played, and Madden was just a different type of striker, wasn't he?
For Miller, it wasn't just the goals; it was the way he brought in the likes of Zoko and McGovern and Loy and people like that. So, he was unlucky, Madden, with us, and I think it's one of those ones of hindsight. I saw him play in some reserve games. I was working at the club at the time, and he wasn't good. He looked poor in those games. So, in that sense, he only had himself to blame for the fact that he wasn't forcing himself into the team. And then he goes away and does his good loan spell, and he clicks that. It works for some players at some clubs and not others. Carl Hawley's the ultimate example of that, isn't it, for us? Didn't work out at all for him at Walsall. Brilliant for us. Preston didn't really work out. Most of his other clubs, bar maybe a brief spell at Scunthorpe and Notts, it didn't work out for him. It was us where everything clicked. And it happens sometimes. You just have to deal with that, don't you, really? That's just the way it is.
Exactly.
So there you go. As you mentioned, Mike, last time out, they were playing against Salford City, and they won 2-0 in the big derby game. Got a game just before half time from Collar, and then Paddy Madden, who's really hitting a bit of form, isn't he? Really, he got the goal, assisted by Carl Wotton. So they're definitely going to be a pair to watch out for, aren't they? Yeah,
definitely. I mean, Madden, all right. I think during his sort of heyday at Yeovil, he had a bit of pace about him, but he's always just been a goal scorer, hasn't he? And I think now his pace has maybe gone a bit, but he's probably sort of a similar sort of player to Christian Dennis, you'd maybe say.
He's probably evolved into being a good player who could hold up the ball as well, because he never looked like a player who could do that when he was fuzzy. He was very much about his pace and getting away from him, wasn't he? So fair play to him. So in terms of the form table, they're slap bang in the middle pretty much. I think they're 13th for Stockport. They're basically, in the last 6 games, they've got 9 points. So I think they've won 2. Drawn 3. Sorry, I'm trying to get the table up here. It's not loaded on my computer for a second here. There you go. Right, I've got it up now. Sorry. So in the last, the 8 points they've got in the last 6 games. So they've got a record of drawn, lost, drawn, won, lost, won. So they're middling at the moment, and for us, it's a case of trying to bounce back, isn't it? The first attempt. Now, let's talk quickly, Mike, before we go into predictions and wrap up today's episode, about United and what we do, because injury and suspension wise, we are in a real tough situation for this game, aren't we? I mean,
yeah.
What are you doing then? Because obviously we haven't got Edmondson fit. Dennis is going to have to play probably a full 90 minutes again, which is not ideal, really. I feel for him. He's not getting a huge amount of rest at the moment, is he?
No.
What are you going to do with the line?
I think I'd do what we alluded to before. I think we've got no choice but to kind of go a 3-6-1, and maybe just play Gibson in behind Dennis, or maybe even, because I mean Jaden Harris played as a 10 for Aldershot, and maybe even play him as like a 10, and because Dennis he's not the most physical player in the final third, and maybe put Harris in there and he'd give you that bit of physicality up there.
There is an option potentially to put Mellish into midfield and bring someone else in defence, possibly.
Yeah.
I think I'd rather keep him in defence. Mistakes aside at the weekend, I think he's been brilliant there this season, so I don't think I'd make a change there. I'm just looking for. I mean, the one issue we've got is as soon as you promote Harris into the starting line, which you're probably going to have to, I imagine that's probably going to be the decision. You've then got to bring an Ida into the bench, and again, the bench starts to look like it's packed with defenders and young kids, basically. In fact, you know what? If you do that, you literally only got Toby you can bring off the bench, and you can only get 10-15 minutes out of him realistically.
Yeah.
So that's what worries me. What we do there potentially. It's a tough one. It's a very tough one, actually.
It is a tough one. It really is, and I think Edmondson's 3-match ban is the last thing that we need right now. It really is.
Definitely, absolutely. Right, well, I think we've covered as much as we can there, Mike. So let's get our predictions in. Go on, let's have yours for this game.
Well, I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw, and I'll go for Christian Dennis to score.
Ooh, okay, 1-1 with Christian Dennis. You know what? I did the thing for the Stockport County pod, and they asked me what my prediction was, and guess what I said?
What did you say?
1-1 draw, Christian Dennis to score. And I'm going to go for that again, so I'm afraid if you get points, I'm getting points as well. So what a shit.
You just can't have me gaining on you in this little leaderboard, can you?
I know. We should say, actually, in terms of the leaderboard, both me and Dan got a point for predicting Ryan Edmond to score.
Yeah, so as it stands, Dan's on 10, you're on 9, and I'm still on 4.
You'll get there eventually, Maybe you're like a Stockport County, and you'll bubble away and you'll get yourself up the tail, but you never know. Right, well, here's what Dan had to say in terms of his predictions for this game.
I'm going to go for a hard-fought 2-1 win. Christian Dennis and Jordan Gibson, now he's got a goal, is going to go on a run.
Thanks
there, Dan, for your predictions as well. Rightio, we're not going to do the X-Files section this week. We're going to save it and do a bumper one for the Tranmere game preview, which will probably be coming out on Thursday potentially, because I have to record it a little bit earlier because I'm away this week. So annoying, my nearest away game of the season. I'm not going to be there, unfortunately, because I'm at a wedding in Cardiff. So there you go. And that's it. I think we've pretty much covered it. Like I said, it's weird. We've lost 3-2. We've ended up, the 9-game unbeaten run's over, but we're still feeling confident, aren't we? There's a bit of belief there, isn't there? And we just got to get this injury list sorted.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw Jamie Devitt was training, I should say, actually. He's back in training on the grass, which is really good to see as well. That's another really important option for us, isn't it?
I would say that this Tuesday at Stockport is the worst game for the injuries and sort of suspensions now. I think this is the barest of bare bones that we're at now.
Yeah, 100%. Particularly in attack. That's the area where we've got real problems in it. So hopefully there's light at the end of the tunnel, and hopefully Stretton, I think the mention was that Stretton was potentially only a couple of weeks, wasn't it? So with any luck, he might be back for probably not Tranmere at the weekend, but maybe for the Tranmere Cup game possibly. So that would be good if we can get him back for that. If he's allowed to play in it, I don't know if there's any restrictions in terms of cup time. He is on a season-long loan, so hopefully he shouldn't be. But there you go. Right, well, that's it then, Mike. Well, like I said, we'll be back later this week to do a preview of the Tranmere Rovers game as well. And then obviously we'll be back the week after to do a preview of the Tranmere Rovers FA Cup game, because that's the way the cup draw's gone for us this year. But there you go. Mike, thanks very much for joining me.
Cheers.
Thanks everyone for listening, and up the Blues.
Up the Blues.
All are united between us on the board.